Sometimes a small choice reveals a pattern that has been repeating in your life long before you found words for it. What you're drawn to first is often not random at all, because the psyche moves towards symbols before the mind can explain them. That is why this Jungian test is not only about taste, but about the role you may have learned to play when you needed protection, love, control, or distance. A hat can look like style, but in Jung's test it can also act like a sign of the persona, the shield, or the hidden wish that shapes your days. So as you look at these 5 hats, let your first feeling answer before your reasoning steps in and tries to make the safe choice. Do not overthink it now, just choose one hat from 1 to 5. Stay with the one that catches you first, and trust the part of you that reacts before it can defend itself. The first impression matters here, because the deepest patterns rarely arrive as arguments. They arrive as recognition, as tension, as a quiet yes you feel before you know why. And stay to the end, because I am going to connect your choice to something concrete, gentle, and practical. A step you can actually take in real life when the old pattern begins to rise again. Only at the end will the full meaning settle, because what you choose today is only the door. And the deeper truth is the reason that door feels familiar to your soul. But before we go further, pause video and write your name in the comments, because a Jungian test becomes more meaningful when you arrive in it with intention, with presence, and with your own witness. Leave your name there as a small act of honesty, a way of saying that this is not just another passing video, but a mirror you are willing to look into with an open heart. Then come back, keep your choice, and let us see what role your inner world has been asking you to notice, release, or finally outgrow. What you choose may seem small now, but it may reveal the role your pain quietly taught you to wear. If you chose option 1, this usually happens when mystery feels safer than openness, and some part of you has learned to protect a very sensitive heart by becoming difficult to read at first glance. This hat carries the old image of the witch, not as something dark and evil, but as a figure who survives by sensing what others miss, guarding her inner fire and choosing when to reveal what she knows. In simple Jungian language, option 1 often points to the guarded intuitive, the person whose light is perception and depth, yet whose shadow can turn that gift into distance, silence, testing, and emotional smoke. Pay attention to this, because the shadow here does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks calm, elegant, composed, even wise, while underneath it is quietly asking, can I be seen without being hurt again? Stay with me, because people who choose this hat are often strong in subtle ways. They read rooms quickly, notice shifts in tone, sense hidden motives, and feel more than they show, yet they may still wait for others to prove they are safe. A real-life example is the friend who always understands everyone else, gives thoughtful advice, remembers the detail nobody noticed, and somehow becomes the emotional translator in every group, but goes quiet the moment the light turns toward her. Maybe you learned early that if you showed too much, someone would use it, dismiss it, laugh at it, or leave. So instead of closing your heart completely, you taught it to speak through hints, restraint, and selective warmth. That is why this archetype can appear magnetic. There is heat in it. There is instinct in it. There is a private wisdom in it. But pay attention to this mini loop. What protects you can also prevent you from being met. You may know this pattern if you answer with a smile when you are hurt, if you go silent instead of asking for reassurance, or if you secretly hope someone will notice the flicker in your eyes and come closer without being invited. There is nothing weak in this. In fact, the light of option 1 is rare. Intuition with discernment, feeling with self-possession, imagination with boundaries. The question is whether your wisdom is serving love or only guarding pain. Ask yourself, do you use mystery to honor your depth or to avoid the risk of plain truth? Do you call it independence when it is really caution? Do you wait to be understood while hiding the very thing that would let someone understand you? Stay with me for the turning point, because you do not need to become less deep or less intuitive. You may simply need to let warmth do some of the work that secrecy has been doing for too long. Today, write one sentence you have been hiding behind tone, charm, or silence, and send it to the person who truly needs to hear it, or speak it aloud to yourself in the mirror until it sounds like permission instead of danger. That small act matters, because the soul does not heal only by being protected. It also heals by discovering that truth can cross the threshold and still remain loved. And if this is your hat, then your growth is not about becoming louder. It is about becoming clearer, so the people who deserve your truth do not have to guess their way toward your heart. When you stop making people decode you, you do not lose your depth. You give your depth a bridge. And that bridge is often the difference between being admired from afar and being genuinely known. So if option 1 found you, let it be a gentle awakening, not a judgment. Your sensitivity is not the problem. The old habit of hiding it behind a spell of control is what now asks to soften. Let your next brave act be simple, visible and real, because healing begins when truth leaves the shadows into the daylight. If you choose option 2, this message usually appears when strength has become your safest hiding place. It often belongs to people who learn to wear composure like armor, because being unreadable once felt safer than being real. The helmet is a powerful symbol here. It covers the face, cools expression, and turns vulnerability into polished control. In simple Jungian language, this choice points to the armored thinker, the inner sentinel, who trusts discipline more than tenderness. The light in this archetype is obvious and impressive. Steadiness under pressure, quick decisions, and the ability to keep moving when others freeze. But stay with me, because the shadow grows in the same place as the gift. A person can become so practiced at holding everything together that no one notices the storm locked behind the visor. That is the inner conflict of option 2. You want closeness, but you fear what might happen when the armor opens and someone sees your need before your control can hide it. Maybe you have lived this in quiet scenes, answering every message at work, fixing small crises fast, staying efficient all day, then sitting in your car after sunset unable to name what hurts. Or picture a dinner table where everyone laughs, and you keep the conversation bright, useful and neat, while your chest feels like a locked room with the light switched off. This is why the image matters. A helmet protects, but it also narrows touch, sound, breath and spontaneity. The very thing that keeps danger out can keep life out too. Jung might say that a strong persona has stepped forward to negotiate the world, while the softer self remains in the background, waiting, watching and doubting whether it is safe to come out. Pay attention to this small tension. You may crave loyalty, warmth and honest love, yet the moment someone asks how you really are, you answer with a clean sentence and move the spotlight away. The mini-climax hides there. You are not cold, you are guarded. And the longer you stay inside that polished role, the more your own feelings start sounding distant even to you. If this option found you, your deeper wish may be simple. To rest without monitoring every reaction, to be near someone without calculating the cost, to breathe without bracing for impact. There is nothing weak in that wish. In fact, it may be the strongest truth in you, because real strength is not only endurance, real strength is also contact. So here is the everyday scene again, more clearly. The meeting ends. Everyone leaves. You smile, gather your notes, answer one last email, and tell yourself you are fine. Then the elevator doors close, and the silence finally sounds louder than the day. If you know that scene, then you know the cost of permanent armor. It keeps you functioning, but it also teaches your nervous hope to whisper from behind a locked door. Today, set a timer for 12 minutes, sit somewhere quiet and write 2 honest answers to 2 simple questions. What am I feeling right now, and what am I trying not to feel right now? Do not solve the answers. Do not improve them. Just name them. Then spend the remaining minutes breathing slowly and reading those lines back until they stop sounding like a stranger speaking through you. That is measurable, simple and real, and it matters because the first crack in the armor is rarely dramatic. It is often just one quiet moment in which you stop performing strength and start witnessing your own hidden life. When that happens, the helmet stops being your prison and becomes your tool, because protection is healthy only when it can open. Then your strength stops hiding you and starts introducing you. That is the quiet victory hidden in option 2 here. If you could choose 3, it may be because some part of you has learned to love movement more than certainty, and freedom feels warmer than staying where old disappointment can find you again. The brown traveler's hat carries a quiet promise. It belongs to the one who keeps going, keeps adapting, keeps inventing a new horizon before the last one can ask too much. In Jungian language, This choice often points to a persona built around independence. But beneath that persona, there is often a schema shaped by avoidance, where motion protects the heart from the weight of being fully known. Stay with this image. A person says they like options, they need air, they hate feeling trapped, and all of that may be true, yet the deeper truth is softer. They may have learned that closeness can become pressure, that stillness can awaken grief, and that commitment can feel like standing still in front of a door that once closed too hard. And slowly the role of the wanderer stops feeling like a role and starts feeling like identity. Here's an unexpected twist. The problem is not your love of freedom. The problem is the hidden bargain beneath it. You get to keep possibility, but you do not always get to keep peace. You stay in motion, but some part of life stays unfinished behind you. Think of the person who is brilliant at beginning. At work, they launch ideas with fire, charm, and conviction, but when the project reaches the stage that needs repetition, patience, and small daily decisions, their energy fades and a new idea suddenly looks more alive. Or in relationships, they answer warmly, make beautiful plans, speak about honesty and depth, but when the bond begins to ask for regular presence, a clear answer, or a choice that closes other doors, they become vague, late, distracted, or strangely busy. See what happens next. This is where the inner conflict appears. Part of you longs for a path. Another part fears what that path will take away. The shadow does not always shout no. Sometimes it whispers later, maybe, not yet, let me think, until time makes the decision for you. That is how avoidance hides in plain sight. It wears intelligence, it wears sensitivity, it wears the noble language of waiting for the right moment. But the right moment often arrives only after someone decides to stand still long enough to meet it. If option 3 is yours, your gift is real. You can see openings others miss. You can reinvent yourself after loss. You can survive change without losing imagination. That is light, not weakness. Yet every gift becomes heavier when it serves only escape. The question is not whether you deserve freedom. The question is whether your freedom is expanding your life or protecting you from the ordinary courage of staying. Today, choose one pending promise that has been floating in your mind for days or weeks. Set a timer for 15 minutes and move it to a visible finish line. Send the reply. Confirm the date. Complete the form. Deliver the first draft. Then write one sentence that begins with "I choose this" and one sentence that begins with "I release that." Read both aloud before the timer ends. This simple act matters because decision is a muscle, and commitment becomes trustworthy only when it enters the body through action. When you finish one clear thing, the persona of endless motion loosens, the schema of avoidance loses a little power, and the self discovers that staying does not erase freedom. Sometimes it gives freedom a home. If you chose 3, maybe your soul is not asking for another escape route. Maybe it is asking for a place where your energy can finally land, grow roots, and become something stronger than possibility. If you chose 4, this usually appears when control has become the quiet bargain you make with life, because some part of you fears that the moment you loosen your grip, something precious will slip away. You may look strong, capable, even calm, yet underneath there is often a tense inner negotiation between staying in charge and surrendering enough to be real. In simple Jungian language, this choice often belongs to the sovereign persona, the part that learned to survive by rising above chaos, proving value, and keeping weakness out of sight. The light of this pattern is real: dignity, endurance, leadership, the ability to carry pressure without collapsing. But the shadow appears when your strength stops serving life and starts serving fear, especially the fear of losing respect, love, order, or the image of being the one who never shakes. This is the place where control turns into a private religion, and you do this more quietly than you admit, choosing mastery over honesty, polish over need, and certainty over change. For Jung, the shadow is not only anger or pride, it is also the fear of limitation, the refusal to accept that life will not always obey your plan, your timing, or your self-image. The hidden fear of change is powerful here, because change asks you to release the role that has earned you admiration, and some part of you wonders who you will be without that crown. So you keep everything arranged, measured, and impressive, even when your chest feels tight and your mind is tired from carrying a standard that no one else fully sees. Think of a normal day at work. The meeting shifts, a deadline moves, someone asks for your opinion, and you instantly become the stable center of the room, giving answers, fixing details, and projecting certainty. Everyone feels relieved, and you know that role well, perhaps too well, because once people depend on your composure, it becomes harder to tell them that you are afraid too. Then a smaller scene arrives later. A friend asks a simple question. Your partner asks what you really want, or your own body asks for rest, and suddenly, surrender feels more dangerous than exhaustion. That is the tension in option 4. Control promises safety, but it also demands performance, and performance slowly steals softness, spontaneity, and the freedom to let another person truly meet you. You may not call it fear. You may call it standards, maturity, responsibility, or self-respect. But beneath those noble words, there may be a quiet terror of being ordinary, uncertain, or changed by love. And yes, you do this more often than you realize. You hold the line, manage the atmosphere, and keep your answer elegant, even when your whole inner world wants one clean human release. If this chapter recognizes you, then the invitation is not to become careless or weak. It is to discover that surrender is not collapse. Sometimes surrender is simply truth without decoration. Today, give one unmistakable answer, in a place where you usually hide inside diplomacy. Say a clear yes to what you truly want, or a clear no to what drains you, and do not explain beyond one honest sentence. Then let the discomfort rise without correcting it. That moment will show you whether your old power came from wisdom or from fear of losing your place in the eyes of others. A true sovereign can choose with an open spine and a soft heart. That is the growth hidden here. Not perfect control, but clean alignment. Not endless management, but honest direction. Once you answer with truth, you do not lose your value. You stop renting it from appearances, and you begin to feel the quiet relief of standing in your own life without performing for survival. And call it strength for others too. If you chose 5, something in you is already moving, even if your outer life still looks the same. This choice often appears when the soul is tired of repeating an old order, and a more alive part of you wants air, motion, risk, and a new direction. The bright green hat carries that signal. It does not ask for permission. It breaks the mood of heaviness, interrupts routines that have gone numb, and points toward transformation. In simple Jungian terms, this is close to individuation. The courage to gather the parts of yourself that were split apart, the playful self, the serious self, the brave self, the frightened self, and begin living as one person instead of a performance built only to keep peace. Stay with me, because the shadow here is subtle. You may speak of change, dream of change, even prepare for change, while quietly delaying the one act that would make the change real. You want movement, but you also fear the cost of becoming visible in a new way. That inner tension matters. Part of you is ready to break the established pattern, while another part still wants the comfort of the familiar cage. So the days pass in small loops. You tell yourself you will send the message tomorrow. You postpone the difficult conversation one more week. You buy the notebook, plan the routine, imagine the healthier life, and then repeat the old evening, the old silence, the old excuse. This is not because you are lazy. It is because real transformation asks for a line to be crossed, and once you cross it, the old self cannot fully pretend anymore. That is why this option often appears when a person is closer to change than they admit. You are not just restless, you are ripening. In everyday life, this can look very ordinary. You know a habit is draining you, but you keep protecting it because it is predictable. You know a relationship needs one honest sentence, but you keep waiting for a perfect mood that never arrives. You know your energy would change if your mornings changed, yet you keep waking into the same automatic pattern because routine can feel safer than rebirth. Here is the quiet highlight. Your life may not need a giant revolution right now. It may need one clean act of courage that cannot be taken back. And pay attention to this firm truth. Every time you delay what you already know, you strengthen the old pattern and teach your nervous system that fear gets the final word. Every time you act with clarity, even in a small way, you teach yourself that change is survivable, structure can be renewed, and your future is allowed to look different from your past. Today, choose one decision you have delayed, set a timer for 15 minutes, and complete the first irreversible part of it before the timer ends. Send the message. Cancel the commitment that no longer fits. Book the appointment. Throw away the object tied to the old habit. Change the setting, delete the number, mark the date, tell the truth. Make it visible and make it final. Do not prepare for the step. Take the step. That is how individuation begins in real life, not as a grand speech, but as courage entering the body through action. Once that happens, the fear does not disappear at once, but the center of your identity starts to move. You stop orbiting the life you want and begin standing inside it. If you chose 5, your deepest need may not be more inspiration. It may be integration. The playful part of you wants freedom. The wiser part wants direction. And the stronger part knows that breaking with the established order will cost something, but staying divided is already costing more. So let this be the moment when movement becomes meaning. Not dramatic, not chaotic. Just honest, direct, and irreversible enough to tell your own psyche that the new chapter has already begun. Whatever you chose, the pattern beneath it is not random. Each symbol points to the same hidden movement in the psyche. Avoidance trying to look like personality, repetition trying to look like fate, fear trying to look like wisdom, and a deeper self quietly asking for integration. In simple Jungian language, the persona learns a role to protect us. The shadow holds what that role cannot show, and life keeps presenting similar scenes until what is hidden can finally be seen. That is why one person hides in control, another in distance, another in motion, another in brightness, and another in mystery. The costume changes, but the wound often speaks the same old dialect. Yet there is something hopeful here. Once a pattern is named, it stops ruling with the same force. Once a symbol is recognized, it becomes a door instead of a trap. This is the quiet achievement of your choice today. You did not just pick an image. You caught a glimpse of the way your inner world has been trying to protect you, and that glimpse is already the beginning of freedom. Stay with that feeling. Nothing in this video was meant to label you. It was meant to return you to yourself with a little more honesty and a little less fear. The hidden fear may be rejection, failure, loss, exposure, or change, but beneath all of them is the same human hope, to be safe enough to become whole. That is where integration begins. Not in perfection, not in force, but in the brave moment when you stop fighting your own complexity and start listening to it. In folk psychology, we often say, people repeat what they have not understood, and symbols matter because they let the heart understand before the mind finishes defending itself. So if you felt seen, let that recognition become movement. Let it become a new beginning, quiet but real, because healing rarely arrives as thunder. More often it arrives as one clear step that interrupts an old loop. Today, notice the role you reach for when discomfort appears. Name the fear that role is trying to protect, and choose one small action that belongs to the person you are becoming instead of the pattern you are repeating. Then follow through before the day ends. The real test begins after this video because insight matters, but integration begins when insight enters behavior, and behavior repeated with honesty becomes a new inner structure. What you did here matters more than it seems, because recognition is a form of return, and return is the first sign that your inner life is no longer running only on habit. Many people think change begins with certainty, but it often begins with discomfort, with the strange feeling that an old role no longer fits the soul that is waking up. If that feeling is in you now, honor it, because a true new beginning does not ask you to become someone else, only to stop abandoning the parts of you that were waiting for their turn. You may have noticed that every option carried a different costume, yet each one circled the same question: what do you do when life touches the place where you still feel unfinished? Some withdraw, some manage, some delay, some charm, and some keep moving, but all are trying to negotiate with pain without having to name it directly. Now you know a little more, and that knowledge is an accomplishment, because what was vague has become visible, and what was automatic has been interrupted. That interruption is small, but it is powerful, because it gives choice back to the self. From here, let your next act be simple, honest, and completed. Keep the insight, but prove it with action before night. When you do, the pattern loosens, the fear loses its throne, and the life beneath the role begins to breathe in daylight again within you. If something in this video felt uncomfortably true, do not leave that feeling behind when the screen changes. Keep it with you for one more moment and turn it into something real. Please indicate your chosen number in the comments. Let that number become more than a choice. Let it become a small act of honesty, a way of saying that you recognized yourself here and that you are willing to see your pattern without hiding from it. Please type your name. There is something powerful about arriving with your own name, not as a stranger passing through, but as a person who is ready to be present for what they just discovered. And if this touched a part of your story that you rarely show, like this. Not because it is a routine gesture, but because some truths deserve to be marked when they find us at the right time. Subscribe if you want more of these moments, more of these mirrors, more of these quiet reminders that your inner world is not random and that even the patterns that once protected you can begin to soften when they are finally seen. Maybe your choice revealed a role you know too well. Maybe it uncovered a fear you have been dressing up as strength, distance, charm, control, or movement. Maybe it simply gave a name to something you have felt for years without knowing how to explain it. Whatever happened here, do not treat it like nothing. There are moments that look small from the outside and still change the direction of a life. This can be one of them, if you let it stay with you long enough to become action. So before you go, leave your number, leave your name, and let this be the moment when reflection becomes decision. You came here for a test, but what you found may be a beginning, and beginnings need witnesses. They need one clear gesture that says, yes, I see myself now, and I do not want to go back to sleep inside the same old pattern. So stay with that feeling, hold on to what felt true. Then do the simplest and bravest thing next. Watch the next test on your screen right now. Because sometimes the first symbol shows you the mask, and the next one shows you what has been waiting underneath it all along.